I get this question a lot, especially this time of year when summer's now upon us and people are done planting green beans, they're done planting cucumbers, they're done planting a lot of their flower seeds. How do I store them and how long will those seeds last? I just figured I'd put together a couple slides here to answer those questions. If you are collecting seeds, when you collect them from flowers and even vegetables, just make sure they are thoroughly dry. We want to reduce that humidity or that moisture in those seeds down under 60% so that when we put them in storage, they will not mold or deteriorate. And so make sure they're thoroughly dry. So when I do flower seeds, I usually let them lay on my counter for a couple of weeks in an open dish. I know that the seeds on the top of the slide, they're ones that will explode as they are drying. And so they will pop all over the place. So I always put a loose fitting lid on there to deflect those seeds back down into the container. The bottom picture is rough blazing star, and it's one that, you can leave just in an open dish. And you can do this with other seeds too if you're collecting them. When you go to store them, once they're dry, you always want to put them into something like a plastic container or a plastic bag. You can even do a paper bag. It doesn't have to be plastic, or even paper envelopes. Anything that will not have condensation in. And so just remember that. Avoid high temperatures, because the higher the temperature, your germination rates start to fail. And so you want these seeds to last as long as possible. So 2 key things: make sure that they're dried out completely and they stay dry, and that they're not in a hot area. I always tell people put them in a cool basement, if it's not a wet basement, or store them in the refrigerator. Now, the question I get a lot is, why not the freezer? Well, some seeds can tolerate the freezer just fine, and it does not reduce viability. And when I say viability, I mean the length of that seed to live. So a lot of times I will say refrigerator is best, because there are some seeds that the embryos are killed by the freezing temperatures. So refrigerator is best, or a cool area where they won't get overly heated. Now, if you've bought seeds and you want to try to, keep those, then I always tell people don't open them until you're ready to use them, because a lot of them are in a sealed package or they're in a wax paper packet, and those will help preserve those seeds and keep them drier. So keep them closed until you're ready to use them. Once those seeds are open, you want to try to keep them indoors. You want to try to keep them dry. Once again, lower humidity under that 60%. And of course, store them in the refrigerator or in a basement area where it's going to stay a lot cooler. I always really recommend, whether you're using seeds that have been prepackaged or you're collecting your own seeds, I always try to encourage people to check that germination rate about every 2 years, because we will see a dramatic decrease, especially if they are not stored right. Just a good way to check that germination or check for that viability: do a germination test. And a lot of times all it is taking a piece of paper towel, you put 10 seeds on it, moisten that paper towel down, put it in a baggie, and see how many are going to germinate within 5 to 7 days. So pretty easy. And, if you have 8 out of 10, you have 80%. If you have 2 out of 10, you have 20%. And so if you have a lower percentage, you just know to sow it a little heavier next year. And the one thing I always fail to do, I forget to do, is record that germination rating. Get you a pen or even a grease pencil and mark it on that package. And you always put the date that you tested and the germination rating, so that you remember, okay, all right, I tested these last fall and I need to go a little heavier on my seed. Now, I do get a lot of questions about how long are seeds good for. And this is off of extension publications, and this is off of research-based data. So 2 years, you can count on corn, lettuce, onions, parsley, peppers. They stay good for 2 years. Things stay good for 3 years: beans, broccoli, carrots, spinach, peas. 4 years: beets, cabbage, kale, squash, and tomatoes. And then 5 years: cucumbers, muskmelon, radish. Now, at the bottom, you will see seed viability can vary greatly. And I say that, and it all goes back to how you store them, how much humidity and how much moisture is there, if you collected them, or, what the variety is. Because, for example, lettuce seeds, definitely, you can have a lot of germination problems within a year. Whereas tomatoes, Tomatoes, I've been planting the same tomato seeds for now close to 15 years, but they've been stored correctly. And so just keep that in mind. The more you can limit that humidity and the heat, the longer those seeds are going to last you. But this is just on average. So definitely take a look at that guide and keep it on hand. And that way you can be reminded of how long those seeds will last roughly.